The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Project managers are from Mars, business and analysts are from Venus. My name is Sarah and I'll be helping out with today's session. Before we get started, I just want to review a few housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate in today's session. This webinar is being recorded. We will provide you a link to the recording as soon as it is available. You have joined today's webinar listening through your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to call in, just locate your audio pane and select Use Telephone. The dial-in information and access code will then be displayed. Attendees will be in listen-only mode, and we invite you to ask questions about the presentation using the questions pane. Just type in your question and click Send. At the end of the webinar, we will do a Q&A session and take as many questions as possible. Now let me introduce you to our presenters today. Sheryl Lee is an instructor here at Global Knowledge and facilitates workshops, classrooms, and seminars in business analysis. You may have seen her at Project World and Business Analyst World conferences as well. She is a former Director-at-Large for the International Institute of Business Analysis, Toronto, and is currently the co-founder and chair of the PMI Southern Ontario Chapter VA Community. She is a consultant for project management and VA projects, as well as develops customized training solutions for large corporations. Ori Schibi was originally going to join us today, but has been taken away on a personal matter. So in his place, we have Alexander Stanisic. Thank you for filling in, Alex. Alexander is a seasoned business professional within the public and private sectors and is a well-respected member of the project management community. He is currently teaching 10 university-accredited courses for global knowledge in association with McMaster University. Both Sheryl and Alexander are our top facilitators here, so welcome and thank you for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for the introduction. We're actually going to start off with a poll, though. We want to know who we have on the line over here.
All right, everyone, we invite you to participate in today's quick poll. What is your role? Project manager, business analyst, a hybrid, PM, MBA, or none of the above? We'll give everyone just a few seconds to input their answers. I see that people are still joining us, so I want to remind you all that we will be sending out a recording of the webinar as well. So just a few more seconds, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and share the results. All right, here we go.
Check that out. It looks like you're outnumbered, Alex.
It looks, well.
All right, so we have 42 business analysts, and then we have project managers. We see a quarter of our audience are a hybrid.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Very interesting. All right, so thank you for that. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
So here's some of the topics that we're going to cover this afternoon. We're going to start off with the role of the project manager versus that of the business analyst. We'll also cover some tips to form a partnership with your project manager or your business analyst. And I guess if you are in that hybrid role, hopefully you're not going to have that problem since you are the same person. We'll also discuss some of the trends in the project management and business analysis communities. Let's start with some of the misconceptions of the PM and the BA roles. Let's take a look at what people think we do. Alex, did you want to start? What do some people think a project manager does here?
So what people think about project management, sometimes I'm getting this getting the job done. Or maybe I heard recently one lady told me, Alex, my job as a project manager is babysitting. And I said, what? Babysitting? Well, some conceptions and misconceptions will be discussed here, but let's cover some major misconceptions of the PM role. Our primary job is to be the process and deliverable police. Or maybe we don't actually do anything, we just delegate everything. And if you want to work hard, you may become a VA, but if you want to make others work hard, in that case, you definitely become a project manager. Definitely project managers are accountable and also responsible for each and every activity because that's the nature of their business, to manage people, manage process, manage project. Sometimes they also have to think about reporting, and getting the big picture, I think, is a big advantage for project managers versus BAs. But sometimes, yes, misconceptions is that PMs are really seen as paper pushers.
You mean that's not what you do, Alex? I'm kidding. Let's take a look at some of the misconceptions of the BA role now. So most people think, actually, our primary job function is to document, aka just take notes. Also that we set up meetings for anyone on the core project team. So as you can see, people treat us as administrators sometimes. I'm much more than that. I would say, yes, we do document and so forth, but, I saw this in the Twitterverse recently. One of the IABA chapter presidents, I think in the UK, tweeted out that to say that a BA documents and that's their primary job is the same thing as saying that a chef, their primary role is to create the menu, right? That's a huge misconception over here. I don't know how many times have I been asked by project managers to set up meetings or take notes for meetings that I have nothing to do with. And then when I do show up at the meetings and I start asking some of my smart questions, some people say, stop hijacking my meeting to ask a ton of these silly questions that keep delaying my project. Some people also think that our role is to write down word for word what stakeholders say, and then we call them requirements to kind of cover your fill in the blank over there. I don't think I can say that on air.
So what we can say then, what really project managers do. So I will try to clarify. And even better, I would like to clarify looking from the BA perspective as well, because I can speak as a project manager. So I can say that PM essentially is full of conflict. What you do is you deal with a conflict on a daily basis versus BAs that may potentially enjoy or thrive on conflict, but it's not their daily job. BAs, sometimes they get introduction into big picture, but they really need to balance the details. Project managers, really, they manage the big picture. It's their daily job. PMs, of course, they attend a lot of meetings, they drink a lot of coffee, they do a lot of reporting, and for BAs, sometimes it feels like, do they really do something meaningful? Well, yes, we do a lot of real work. Keep that in mind. PMs are managing resources, and I think that's the key difference. To manage resources, to manage people means significant responsibility. So from that reason, and in addition to managing resources, I have to say that we also manage budget, we manage timeline, we manage quality, and we manage, as stated, stakeholders, resources as well. PMs sometimes see a big danger, and BAs maybe don't have a good feel about the danger. How we define that danger, we call it a scope creep. PM, of course, is a lot about politics versus BAs where maybe they don't see this world as political. And finally, PM would like to see everything as ideal versus BAs, I don't know, how you see your world.
Funny you should ask. Let's talk about what a business analyst really does over here. Business analyst role, it's so hard to describe. If you ask anybody, what do you do as a BA? It's really difficult to articulate. And you can think about the IABA. They've only been around for the last 10 years. I can tell you that 10 plus years ago, when my title was a BA, I'm definitely not performing the same functions as I do today as a business analyst. So let me tell you what I tell my friends when they ask me, what do I do as a BA? I like to give them an analogy. My analogy is about shopping online. Have you shopped online before, Alex?
Of course.
Excellent, so I'm glad you can follow along. Me personally, I love shopping for shoes. I'm a shoeaholic, so that's going to be my analogy. Picture this. You are on a department store website. You click on shoes from the heading. You click on next, and the website's going to prompt you. Great. Please provide me with your name, your address, your shipping address, and your billing information. You enter all that in. It's going to be $79.95. These shoes right now are going to be shipped to your door within 5 to 7 business days. Now, I want you, Alex, and every single one of you guys out there to have in your head what those shoes look like. You ready? Is this what you had in mind?
Interesting.
Is that what you were thinking, Alex?
Maybe. They look very nice, I have to say.
Of course. You're always the class clown, aren't you, Alex?
Yeah.
I'm assuming most of you guys were nodding no, though. That's not what you had in mind. So then what went wrong? You asked for shoes. I gave you shoes. We have some difficult stakeholders over here, don't we? So obviously what I described over there was not your typical online shopping analogy, correct?
Correct.
I would say that typically when you're on there, the website's prompting you for additional information. Are they not asking you, well, what size shoes do you actually want? So maybe we shipped Alex the wrong size clown shoes over here. We don't know if you wanted men's shoes, women's shoes, children's shoes, and so forth. So all of those questions that this website is asking you and prompting you, these are requirements. And that's what I do. I'm kind of like an online shopping tool. I ask all of the right questions out of my stakeholders in order to, elicit those underlying needs, elicit what those requirements are. At the end of the day, I would also specify and model those shoes back to you. I would show you a picture of what it was and get your confirmation prior to actually shipping these shoes to your door. So at the end of the day, when these shoes do arrive at your door 5 to 7 business days later, you're supposed to say, that's exactly what I had in mind. So that's what I do as a business analyst.
So may I say in that case that business analysts, they really do requirements management. But listen, PMs, sometimes they also do requirements management. And we call it, you know how we call it? We call it business analysis on the fly.
It's not going to fly for me, Alex. Let's take a look at some of the intersection points between the PM and the BA roles. Did you want to talk about some of those project management bullets first, Alex?
Yes, of course. So project managers really have to be skilled in 2 areas. We define it as the science and the art of project management. And now you can probably follow me and see what is the science and what is the art. Advocating means really getting the buy-in from stakeholders, and this is definitely seeing more art than any science. Integration of all components, integration of both the science and the art is really, as stated, your daily job, but it takes a lot of work. What work? Primarily planning. So planning, again, means a lot of what? Identifying stakeholders, developing your project charter, developing your scope, developing your schedule, developing your cost, thinking about quality, thinking about human resources, developing your risk register, and so on. So planning will obviously take a lot of your daily task planning, but also you need to think about resources, and thinking about resources comes with a completely different challenge. I was stating that you need to delegate resources, but you need to manage resources as well. And managing resources today is, for project managers, really a tricky business. Why? Because you can have the best tools, the best plan, the best methodology, the best requirements, but trust me, they will depend on people.
Let's take a look at some of the bullets on the business analysis side. So we start off with enterprise analysis over here. You've probably heard the terminology, product lifecycle versus the project lifecycle. The project lifecycle, of course, that being shorter than the product lifecycle. Project management, I find that they typically stay obviously within the project lifecycle, whereas the BA role, we actually go beyond that. So we live within the product life cycle. Enterprise analysis, think of that as kind of like all of that pre-work that happens prior to spawning off a project. The major output out of enterprise analysis is really that business case. Before we do a deeper dive on business cases and enterprise analysis, I actually want to pop another poll up there. Out of curiosity, I want to know who produces business cases within your organization. So is it the project manager, the business analyst, or is it someone else within your organization that produces business cases?
So everyone is making their selection. Any predictions, guys? Project manager, business analyst, other?
I've seen project managers actually produce a lot of business cases. What do you think?
What I think, it depends. Because I think the trick here is to recognize hybrid PMBA roles.
Let's take a look.
I was right.
Other.
I was right.
44% other.
That's peculiar then, the other bucket. I'm wondering where the other people, where that other bucket lies. I'm wondering if it's maybe like people like product managers and so forth, maybe those folks that we're thinking in the other bucket. And even still, if it is the product manager, I think it's still okay. I would say that they're probably wearing the BA hat then if they are executing those business enterprise analysis and the business casing activities.
We'll have to add some more options when we do part 2.
Definitely. Absolutely.
All right, back to you, Cheryl.
Sounds like a plan. All right, so we were talking about enterprise analysis and developing the business case. So like I said, we live within the product life cycle. So in enterprise analysis, you're starting off with defining business needs. So you've probably heard needs versus wants and so forth. My husband and I get into these debates all the time. I told you I love shoes. I always say to him, I need a new pair of shoes, and he always says, do you actually need it or do you want a new pair of shoes? There was a statistic that was published by the Stanisic group that indicated that 64% of functionality is rarely or never used. So now if we had truly identified a business need in order to develop certain pieces of functionality, then we shouldn't be in that 64% bucket. So as a business analyst, it's your job to ask why to ensure that we are actually solving a problem over here by introducing this new functionality. And this is even before a project manager is engaged. Because remember, we don't have a project yet in enterprise analysis. Your executive at your organization has a bucket load of money and then they don't know what to do with it, need to figure out how to spend it. What projects are we going to invest in this next year? So in the business case, that's where you're going to find justification as to why you're going to spend money to go forward with one particular project over another. Once that business case gets approved, then that's when you typically see Alex get assigned to the project, possibly another business analyst. It could be the same BA that was working on the enterprise analysis activities, or it could be a brand new BA who only works on projects. So as a BA, we also focus on the requirements development and management processes. So we own that process. If you work more in this agile methodology, then it's that analysis phase, it's the project, that we own that particular work package. Whereas Alex, as a project manager, he kind of manages the overall project, and we have that one work package in there. We also validate. Validating could mean multiple things. One thing in terms of validating, ensuring that what we're building over here is meeting our stakeholders' expectations. I spoke about the shoes being delivered to the door, and for stakeholders to think, yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind. That's what I mean over here by validating. At the end of the day, there's multiple checkpoints prior to those shoes actually being delivered to the door. So we're also a liaison. So in the definition of business analysis, it starts off as business analysis is a set of tasks and techniques used to work as a liaison amongst your stakeholders. You ask most people, what do you do as a BA? And they'll probably say, I'm the middleman between business and IT. You're actually the middleman amongst all your stakeholders, not just limited to business and IT. Shall we tackle some of the intersection points together
Absolutely.
now?
So I would like to start from the bottom one, which is risk management. What do you think about risk? What's your conception about risk management? Because honestly, when I think about risk management, this is my first thing in the morning. I have to think about risks. Yes, requirements are nice, but I also have to think about the objectives, because these objectives, my objectives, will drive your requirements, and they come through stakeholders' expectations, essentially meeting stakeholders' expectations. So you can probably recognize that meeting stakeholders' expectations is not just my job, it's partially your job as well. But again, I see the big picture, and sometimes, or maybe more, you don't see the big picture. So what's your conception about risk?
Glad you asked. We're actually going to do a deeper dive on risk management in a little bit, but I do see you do have that large-scale conception on risk, meaning that you look at things from a project risk management perspective. There's this concept of requirements risk management as well. So we will do a little more of a deeper dive on that, I think, when we cover risk management. But yeah, there is a difference between what I would focus on versus what you would be focusing on as a project manager.
Great. Also, what I could recognize as significant is communication. I believe that project managers can learn something from business analysts. Do you agree with me?
I 100% agree with you.
So why?
What can you learn from me? Well, I think when we do a deeper dive in communication, the bottom three, we are going to do a bit more of a deeper dive, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But obviously, we do look at things more at a micro level. So the things that I guess the things that I'm communicating more at a micro level, they will impact stakeholder expectations as well, right? And then, as you said, stakeholder expectations and managing those, more your responsibility. So I think you'd be interested in what I'm communicating to my stakeholders. Would you not?
How you can do it, I'll tell you from my perspective how it works. You know how it works. All of my stakeholders, they come with only one wish. Alex, this is what I want. And I said, listen, I know what you want, but you're taking a position. I really want to learn what you need. Is it really your job too?
That is my job. You're absolutely right. Remember I discussed needs versus wants, right? So we don't want to be in that 64% bucket of the functionality rarely or never being used. What we find is, when I meet with my stakeholders anyways, half the time they don't know what they need or want themselves until we ask them the right questions to draw that information out of them, which you've probably been familiar with that term, elicitation, right? That's how that came to fruition.
So it's not only about requirements management. It takes probably a little bit more extra, as you explained, right?
For sure.
Good. So what else we can cover? We can talk about alternative selection, quality assurance, detailed planning, stakeholder analysis and management, lessons learned. And speaking about lessons learned, I don't know why, but very frequently I'm getting this feedback from people. Yeah, we collect lessons learned, but then we don't know what to do with them.
And not that we don't know what to do with it, we just shelve it and we never look at them ever again, right?
Even worse. Yes. And now, speaking about change management, because we'll cover scope management in the next slide, when it comes to changes, your job is to do what?
I think let's talk about that when we cover scope management as well.
So let's talk about scope management.
Shall we? All right. So when we're taking a look at scope, we're actually looking at scope from two perspectives. So we have project scope as well as product scope. So project scope, it defines the activity, time, and resources that are needed for the project, whereas product scope defines what must be delivered in order to meet the business need, that is, those major features of the requirements of the solution. Let me give you an example to kind of explain the difference between project and product scope. We are here sitting at in the GK headquarters at Young & Bloor, and there's chairs in our classrooms. Let's say that our project right now is to ensure that we have chairs in all of the classrooms here at Global Knowledge. Now, are we going to purchase the chairs? Are we going to build these chairs from scratch? Are we going to develop requirements for the chair? Are we going to test out the chair? All of those things are activities in order to deliver this project, right? So that's more project scope. Now, product scope, it's more around the requirements of the chair. So, for instance, is there a requirement that these chairs need to be able to be moved around the classroom? Do these chairs have to have handles so that I can rest my arms comfortably on them? Can I spin around in my chair in this classroom? So all of those things are more around requirements or product scope. And as you can guess, a project manager like Alex here would be more concerned with project scope, whereas myself, as a business analyst, I would be more concerned with product scope. But there is a relationship between the two.
Of course, there is a very strong relationship because you know what is the end goal for project managers? The end goal at this stage is really to develop work breakdown structure. And again, it needs to come from requirements, but also it needs to meet the guidelines. Those guidelines are essentially developed in the project charter and essentially in your project scope statement. As I pointed, objectives will drive everything, but here is the big risk as well. Changing your scope on a project level will include a lot of other things because it's not just changing the product scope. It means changing some other areas that we define as areas of other management responsibilities. And in that case, we have to think about too many things, just to mention, about administration, about marketing, potentially about security, about legislations, about rules, and so on. So considering the project scope as a big picture, as a broad picture, we obviously need to manage this quite differently from maybe someone who is a junior or PM collecting only the product scope. So as I said, our focus is really that big picture.
Yeah. But, as you can see with my example with the chair, if, originally we decided that these chairs did not have to be moved from classroom to classroom, and then all of a sudden we received a change request from our Global Knowledge headquarters that these chairs had to be able to be moved around from classroom to classroom, so we had to add the wheels. So now in order to add the wheels to the chair, can you see how adding that requirement affects your project scope? It would probably take us more time, most likely more money as well, in order to deliver that product at the end of the day. So I have a question for you guys out there. Who normally manages changes to projects at your organization? Who owns the project change management process at your organization? Would that be the project manager, the business analyst, both, or neither?
Great. We'll give everyone just a few seconds to click on their choice. I also just want to remind everyone that we will be sending out a recording afterwards as soon as it is available. And I also want to invite anyone to ask questions or give us feedback in the questions page. We might not be able to get to every single question, but we will definitely be following up with everybody afterwards. So please write in, give us your feedback and your comments and your questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll and share the results.
Project managers. Okay, so that's our 51%. I would say that is where it's supposed to be. Would you not agree?
I expected to see this as well.
Okay, great. So project managers, they do own that project change management process within an organization. Now, they would only involve the BA if that particular change involved a change to product scope. Then that's when myself, as a BA, would come in, and we'd probably treat that change request as a mini project in itself, and I'm going to have to elicit additional requirements around it, specify a model and so forth, multiple iterations of that, and then you're going to step in to get the costs and so forth, get it approved, and then that's how it gets implemented. Awesome. Let's move on to the next topic.
The next topic is all about communication. So thinking about communication and connecting project managers. Do you know how much time you spent communicating as a project manager? Well, usually I get a feedback, 70%, 80%, on a daily basis, sometimes 90%. And even recently, I started to get feedback like 100%. This is all what I do. I have my BAs and I have some other coordinators helping me really to meet stakeholders' expectations, which is essentially the art of project management. So needless to say, communication is the king when it comes to project management. What we need to think when it comes to communications, we need to think primarily about stakeholders. So from that reason, it starts with a good plan, right? So what we need to plan? First, we need to identify stakeholders, we need to analyze stakeholders, we need to prioritize stakeholders, and based on all of this analysis, we will figure out what? We will figure out how we will manage not only stakeholders, but also how we will manage our communications. So from that reason, obviously, it takes a lot of work, a lot of patience, and again, as I said, this is our daily job. And not just daily job, this is our primary job to communicate. What about you?
I would agree. The same thing with the BA role. As you notice up on the screen right now, a PM, they have a communications management plan, but as a BA, we also have our own BA communication plan. Ultimately, what it is the same thing. It's just you and I would be communicating different aspects. Like I would be more focused, obviously, on requirements, so things more at that micro level, communicating things around requirements, whereas you, as a PM, would be communicating things more like project status rather than requirement status. And I'm sure a lot of my communication as well can be rolled up to what you were ultimately communicating from a project perspective. I also use a lot of communication when I'm eliciting requirements from my stakeholders. So a lot of those things require facilitation techniques and so forth. And remember, a portion of my role is still documentation. Documentation is still a form of communication. So yeah, that's how I think we fit together, which I think we're aligned, right?
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you with this. But you know what? I think that project managers have higher responsibility. Is it true?
I think, yeah, from an overall project perspective, yeah, because I would say what I do rolls up into the overall project. So when you put it from that perspective, I would agree.
Yeah, so please keep this in mind.
Did you just put me in my place, Alex? Let's take a look at risk management now. So remember how I said earlier there is a difference between project risk and requirements risk? So let me explain the difference between that. Project risk, evaluation of the probability and impact of possible risk to the project. So the impact is more to time, cost, and project scope if you think about those triple constraints for project managers, whereas requirements risk, evaluation of probability and impact of possible risk to an application or product instead of the project. So the impact is more to the application or product. So every time I document my risk statements, I always write them into that if-then format. So the if portion, if the system is not user-friendly, then training will be required. In that particular example, you can see that's more project risk because training means I'm increasing project scope, which probably will also mean that there's an impact to timeline and probably cost as well. Now, if I were to articulate that same risk statement in a different way, so the if portion remains the same if the system is not user-friendly, quote unquote, then users may make mistakes when processing applications. So the impact over here is more to the application or product. So as a BA, you're expected to look at things more from the product perspective. Not all requirements risk, though, may end up as a project risk. Let me give you an example of that. I always say constraints and assumptions, they get converted into corresponding risk events. Now, let's just say we had a system constraint where we have there's max 500 concurrent users in the system. Let's just say right now we're at 50 concurrent users. So from the project perspective, you know, we're not anywhere near the 500 mark. So if there are more than 500 concurrent users in the system will crash. That's a product risk, or more of a requirements risk, correct? So now with that being said, do you care from a project management perspective?
I need to care. I cannot imagine what will happen if I don't care. So absolutely, this is very high on my list. But I have to look at it from a slightly different perspective. Yes, it will be included, the product risk, but also have to recognize all other risks.
Right.
And this is where is that real danger, because that risk may hit me from many different sides. Right. It may hit me from a timeline, it may hit me from a budget constraint, it may hit me because of crazy weather or something else. I simply have to analyze and understand, again, the big picture. So thinking about project risk, I also have to not to think about risks as threats. I have to think about risks as opportunities as well. And I'm really curious to know how you see risks not only as threats, but also as opportunities.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, risk just equals uncertainty, and an uncertainty can be positive or negative. From a requirements risk perspective, if we were to implement a certain requirement and so forth, it could have a positive impact on the organization as well, also on the application of the product that we are developing over here. So yes, you have to take a look at opportunities. I know most organizations focus mostly on the threats, and I think you have to get really good at identifying threats and managing threats first before you really start evaluating some of those opportunities.
Absolutely, but you also have to avoid potential for scope creep or even worse, gold plating. So I think looking from this perspective, you have to think about risk for both BAs and PMs as a positive, but also, of course, as a negative thing.
Yeah, and then to tie that up even further, requirements risk most of the time can be converted into project risk, but there are some requirements risks that may not necessarily convert into project risk, but you still have to identify them because during the project transition, they need to be transitioned over to the operational state, like that one where if there are more than 500 current users, the system will crash. If we're at 50 from a project perspective, you're probably not going to hit that risk event. From an operational perspective, then yes, that is something that they need to be concerned with.
So essentially, project managers will be responsible to identify any interfaces between different risk elements, but also to identify any white spaces, essentially unknown unknowns that may easily become known unknowns. So keep that in mind. That's PM's responsibility.
All right. Shall we move on to some of the complementing defining boundaries that we have here?
Good. So we have the project manager. We said project manager will always have responsibility but also accountability for the big picture. So speaking about the big picture, what are the challenges? I think the biggest challenge today for project managers is really how to work good in a matrix environment. You get a lot of responsibilities and accountability as well. It's given to you, but the problem here in the matrix environment is really how to get authority to get the job done, because essentially this is your end goal. So from that reason, you need to consider BA's help. And let's talk about some help. So defining boundaries will be very helpful if we think about PM as a person that may get into collecting requirements, may think about the PM as a person with good managerial skills, may think about the PM as a person who will manage and control project change, which is essentially what? The management component. But in addition to the management component, here is the leadership component, which is to direct and lead the project team, and they essentially work as yin and yang. You cannot get management without leadership. And it's obvious here. You need to delegate responsibilities, we said. So from that reason, you need to help others to get the job done, and definitely remove any issues that will be seen as a roadblock. How you will manage WBS really depends how BAs will do the job. So from that reason, yes, management of the work breakdown structure is your job, but there is a lot of dependency on the business analysis piece. And also, finally, you need to ensure the product or service or result is delivered on time, on budget, and on scope, considering that if changes are involved, in that case, you have to follow the formal process to recognize, identify, and include any changes.
Excellent. So I think you've covered most of the topics over here. There's one that I actually want to focus on a bit more. I love that concept of how, project managers, they collect requirements, and BAs, we elicit requirements. So in the PIM box, they actually have a task in there that says collect requirements, and obviously in the BA box, the business analysis body of knowledge, you'll see that terminology elicits requirements. And it is true that PMs, you do just collect requirements. They are lying on the ground for you guys to pick up because we're the ones who elicit them from the stakeholders. So we have that back and forth conversation with the stakeholders to elicit the underlying needs and so forth. We provide that information to the project manager, so you're collecting it from the BA. You take that information, and that's how you create more your project scope, right? So through the product scope, which is the requirements, you're creating the project scope, and that's how you create that WBS. You're managing the WBS, and then we're performing or executing the task as per the WBS. Shall we move on to the last segment? And I think the most exciting part of the webinar over here. Let's take a look at some of the gossip or the hot topics now in project management and business analysis. The first thing over here, we have this need to get PMs and BAs more familiar with each other's role, and I think just the outstanding number of participants that we have on this particular webinar just proves that. I think we had over 700 of you guys out there signing up for this topic. You guys may have heard very recently, and I would say end of March, I think, is when PMI had announced that they are entering into the business analysis space. They are introducing a brand new certification, which is the PBA, or the Professional in Business Analysis. They are adding that to their repertoire of PMI certifications. So as I mentioned, that's coming out on May 12th, but we don't have too much detail around the PBA yet. From what I understand, the difference between the PBA versus what the IABA has, so the IABA, they obviously have the Certified Business Analysis Professional, that being the CBAP certification. The IABA, their focus is more around the BA role, I guess, in the product lifecycle in addition to the project lifecycle. So like enterprise analysis falls under that, that bucket over there. Evaluating solution performance, that's after it goes into production and so forth. That's more within IABA's perspective of business analysis. From what I understand, PMI is really focusing on the BA role within projects and programs. The other exciting thing that I want to mention is the IABA, they've been working on a BABOK version 3, and they are ready to release their very first draft to the public, and guess what date they're releasing that on? That would be May 12th. Recall, the PMI, the PBA certification, it rolled out on May 12th. It just so happened the IABA, they decided to roll out version 3 of their BABOK, that first draft anyways, also on May 12th. I always joke as a BA, it almost feels like Christmas for me this May.
So speaking about the PMI surprises, the biggest surprise came last year. So as you probably know, as of January last year, we have the new project management body of knowledge, which is now the 5th edition. And obviously, it's forced many changes, specifically related to changes to the PMP exam. So as of August last year, all exam material is now based on the PMBOK 5. And the PMBOK 5 will not change for the next 3 years, essentially before the new cycle kicks in. So this is relatively smooth and safe sailing, speaking about the current and future PMPs, but there is a lot of exciting news on the other fronts, and the word agile is everywhere. So as stated here, anything agile is really a hot topic these days. So speaking about agile, I can say that there is a new certification called PMI Agile Certified Practitioner, and there are over 5,000 people currently certified. This is not the only one. Obviously, you can become a certified Scrum Master and potentially get some other designation if you wish, but what I can see, this is really picking up. What else we can say, some new data. Do you know how many PMPs are in the world today, Cheryl?
How many are there, Alex?
Believe it or not, over 600,000.
That is incredible.
How many VARs in the world today?
So CBAPs out there. Statistic, we're not anywhere near that. We're a little over 3,700 worldwide. I guess it doesn't really compare to the 600,000 plus, huh?
So does it mean that VAs would like to become project managers?
That's an interesting topic. It's a little bit of a soft spot for me, a little bit about my career path. I actually started off as a VA, first of all, and I thought the career path of a VA was to cross over to project management because, you know, I wanted to make the big bucks like you do over here, Alex. So I became PMP certified, became a project manager, full-on project manager, and then I realized that I don't like it that much. I actually prefer staying on the business analysis side of things. I like rolling up my sleeves, actually doing the work rather than delegating the work, Alex.
Okay. So I think you're getting the picture. And obviously, getting into the world of project management really means dealing with people on a daily basis. And this is honestly where things are becoming hard. Why hard? I can tell you that speaking about project managers today, the resources component is the trickiest one to manage. And from that reason, it comes with a lot of stress, of course. And if I have to pick number one reason why project managers hate to be project managers is potentially because of that level of stress. And maybe that's the reason why business analysts would like to stay business analysts. But there are a lot of career opportunities, and I would like to talk about them just briefly. So I've seen in the past business analysts becoming business relationship managers, leading potentially to portfolio manager role, or business analysts becoming product managers, or business subject matter experts, or business architects, or even account managers. Speaking about project managers, I recognize them as a good career path to become program or portfolio managers or even executives. So definitely the difference now versus 5 years ago that there are defined career paths for both VAs and PMs.
You
agree with me?
I 100% agree with you. So I don't have to cross over to the project management realm anymore. We have options. We have a career path as a VA. The other thing I just want to address really quickly was around the hybrid role. I thought it was interesting how we had many of these hybrid PM VAs that were on the line with us. I as well, I know on smaller scale initiatives, I usually wear both the PM and the BA hats because, you know, it doesn't make sense to source a full project manager and a full BA on a particular project. So I think, you know, as we start chunking things out into smaller pieces, move into that agile front, you know, we're probably in that quasi-agile phase and then moving into full agile, we're going to start tackling smaller pieces of projects, which mean that there's more of a need to have that hybrid PM-BA role.
But do we really need different skill sets, or we need the same skill set?
I think in terms of skill set, it's the same. It's how we use it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I think this is very good message here. So speaking about the two roles that we mentioned, project managers and business analysts, we completely understand that project manager is accountable for ensuring that we deliver in timely, cost-effective way, where business analysts really need to deliver solutions that will meet the client's needs and expectations, of course. But at the end, I really think that it's time that organizations start recognizing people for the work they do and the value they bring rather than the position they hold. And honestly, it goes way beyond business analysts and project managers. Do you agree with me?
I 100% agree with you.
Great. So speaking about all of these exciting topics, we did not mention organizational change management. So why organizational change management is a hot topic these days? Essentially why? Because everything is seen as a change, and it's not a surprise. But delivering your project on time, on budget, on scope means also something else. Means is it going to be adopted by your end users? And this is the question that is highlighted many times in the past, but finally now it comes to having a process. And having a process means having essentially some standard guidelines that will help project managers, but also potentially help business analysts how to manage change, organizational change effectively, and how to include people in that process. So there are some exciting news coming from this world, and we will see how things will develop, because essentially there are no timelines that I'm aware of. PMI is taking some actions, but there are also some other organizations taking some actions in this space, and we honestly have to wait and see how things will develop, but we will let you know, of course.
Sounds like a lot of exciting stuff going on in PMI's world over here, entering business analysis space, entering the organizational change management space. With that, there was actually one polling question that I had forgot to pop up a bit earlier. We're talking about the certifications and PMI entering that business analysis space. I'm very curious out there. Is anyone out there interested in pursuing that PMI professional in business analysis, that particular certification that's being offered by PMI right now? The other interesting thing around this is with everyone anticipating the Babok Guide version 3 coming out, I have a feeling for like the last year, those of you who may have been wanting to get CBAP certified and waiting for version 3, and then now all of a sudden PMI announcing their PBA. I'm curious to see if anyone's going to switch over and maybe go for the PBA.
Here are the results.
Wow, look at that. That's not bad. 35% of you guys have an interest. We have some in the unsure bucket, so you never know, but that's pretty impressive. 35%.
Yes, yes. So I think we can slightly conclude our discussion, correct?
And I will tell you guys, there's a lot of conversations coming in right now. So these hot topics are everyone has opinions and they're sharing it with us. So it's really great. And so I would invite people to keep sharing. Cheryl and Alex are very passionate, you can tell, about these topics, and I'm sure that we're going to hear a lot about them in the months to come as well. And next week, May 12th.
Absolutely.
Quite a big day. So we do have some questions that I'd like to ask you. So first of all, one of the questions that we're getting is right on the information that we're streaming. So this webinar is eligible for you to claim those valuable PDUs and CDUs, and we will be sending this information out to you as well. But if you want to take a quick screenshot of this for your own records. So just going back to the hybrid role of the PMVA, what are the risks of having a hybrid PMVA? And what are the pros and what are the cons?
Okay, so I think the pros of having a hybrid PMVA within your organization is you obviously have a resource that's able to be flexible. That's usually my value proposition for myself being dual certified. In terms of resource constraints and so forth. If you need a project manager on a particular project, you can actually be a full PM. If you need a BA, you can be a full BA. If you need, on a small scale initiative, you may not need a full PM, you may not need a full BA. So guess what? Let's go slot somebody with the skill set of both the PM and the BA. So I think in terms of value proposition, value to the organization and so forth, I can tell you that I've definitely, have a lot to gain from being dual certified and having both the PM and the BA background over there. In terms of disadvantages, I guess, I don't know. They always say, you've probably heard this as well, Alex, that how the BA, they're more concerned with doing the right thing. And then, meanwhile, the PM more around just doing the thing on time and developing on time and on budget and so forth. So sometimes you have these conflicts, right? Doing the right thing sometimes costs you more money. It may mean doing things the long way and so forth, which I wouldn't say is a conflict of interest for a project manager, but I would say that, you have these kind of internal debates between yourself over here. It's kind of a conflict between the two roles, so to speak. That's one of the challenges when you're wearing both hats.
We've had a lot of questions about certifications and designations. So can I get your thoughts, just broadly, on where do you see the future of the PMP and CBAP certification, and what do you think is going to happen with the value of these certifications in the future?
This is an interesting question, but also I gave you some numbers because we have 600,000 PMPs and we have how many?
3,700 CBAP.
Yeah, 3,700. So obviously you see the difference. So I think that companies recognize project management professional designation better than other designations. This is the current state. But also I have to say that if we get too many PMPs in the future, essentially the PMP designation will become commodity. And if you have that problem now, people would like to make a difference. So how to make a difference? I don't know. You may become potentially certified in organizational change management, or you can become certified in business analysis and so on, to become essentially a certified hybrid PMBA, correct? That's quite interesting, but I see that the trend is obviously to, from the designation perspective, to have PMPs no matter what. That's my honest opinion. But again, the risk is huge because if we proceed this path, there'll be essentially too many PMPs. So we'll see how things will develop. My strong advice is really, it's not about your designation. It's really about how to apply this knowledge. And good organizations, they know to value application of all of this knowledge. Getting designation or having this designation is something that for some jobs, and we're getting this feedback quite frequently, is becoming de facto something that you need to have. That's the bottom line. And obviously, going more into the future, this will be prominent more and more.
I would 100% agree with you over there, Alex. With that statistic, it's pretty astonishing having 600,000 plus PMPs out there. I feel that nowadays, if you want to apply for a project management position, if you're not PMP certified, unfortunately, most of the time you're probably going to get glossed over. I mean, everyone is PMP certified. Everyone and their mother is PMP certified, right? With between the PBA and the CBAP, though, I just want to talk about that for a second because I'm curious to see what's going to shake out over the next couple years to see which one's going to prevail, so to speak. As I mentioned earlier, at the core, both IBA and PMI, I mean, they have the same opinion in terms of what business analysis is and so forth. It's just we're looking more at the product versus the project perspective. But just looking at the sheer size of PMI, how many members are there part of PMI with her?
Currently close to 500,000.
Right, and then whereas with the IBA, we have about 30,000 members, I think, as part of the IBA. So just taking a look at the numbers game over here, I do hope that there's room in the marketplace for both to survive. Well, I'm not worried about PMI surviving, but interesting to see what's going to happen within the next year or two.
There's time for just one more question. So we've had I'm going to try and aggregate some of them. We've had a lot of questions about what do BAs want PMs to know about BAs, and when do PMs want to know about the other. For example, is it beneficial for a project manager to have BA experience? You're nodding.
Yeah, we're both nodding. I'm sure you guys can see that. Yeah, I think it's extremely important for the PM to understand the BA role as much as it is for the BA to understand the PM role, right? Because the main message at the end of the day over here is that PMs and BAs, we have to work together. We have to form a partnership over here. I always say it's almost like a marriage. Like, you really have to work together to balance books, right? We really have to work together to figure out what all the requirements are and so forth. And if this relationship doesn't work out, then your project is almost doomed to fail. So absolutely, yes, you have to understand each other's roles.
So I would like to ask the following questions. Project managers, can you imagine your life without business analysts? I hope the answer is no, because if your answer is yes, your project is doomed. And business analysts, can you imagine your project possible without project managers? Of course not. So I think you recognize we need to work together.
Yes, we need each other at the end of the day. As much as we bicker, we do need each other.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I just want to share with everybody just a few things that are going on with Global Knowledge. So we have currently our virtual classroom. We have a promotion on. You can earn 5 times your Air Mile reward miles with any qualifying Global Knowledge virtual classroom course. The URL is there, so check out all of the eligible courses. We do have some great project management, business analysis, agile, all of those are available virtually, so check that out and check that out often. And I will also invite you to continue the conversation with us on Twitter. There's our Twitter handle @GKCanada. We do have some lively debates, and we've had a great debate here today, and we'd love to continue that on Twitter as well. And so I just want to thank Cheryl and Alex and invite you to share any closing thoughts. This has been wonderful. But, thank you, and any parting words for our audience.
Well, speaking about my final word is really to emphasizing that both PMs and BAs need to think about the value they deliver. And the best value is obviously if you are able to work together. Organizations are not interested, as I said, in specific roles. They're interested to get the business value at the end. And I think that's really the key message for all of us here.
Well said, Alex. I'm with you. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and we hope to hear from you guys